Broadcasting from Hollywood, California, it's Grants Rants, Hollywood Talk.
Lindsay Lohan's career takes a turn. We've got inside scoop on Potomac Housewives, including Ashley Darby's husband's sexual assault drama. More 90-Day Fiancé talk, and housewife Luann DeLesseps has me fired up. That and podcast talk with Mary Payne Gilbert. Let the ranting begin. I am joined via Skype by Mary Payne Gilbert, calling in from the East Coast. She's the host of Pain in the Pod and a co-host of a Patreon-only podcast, Hey Bunky, with Erin Martin, who we've had on this show a couple times. And now it's time to have Mary Payne on the rants. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Grant. I'm so excited to talk to you.
Yeah, well, you know, you invited me on your show, and now it's time to come on this show. So I'm excited, and thank you for even having me on as a guest.
It was great talking to you, and I think that you were truly surprised and happy to have somebody interview you for once. You know, it's when the tables are turned, it's a little different, huh?
Yeah, it was. It was nice to talk about things too, like that I do, because I don't really get a chance to do that, you know. And I don't really talk too much about my work stuff on this show because it's just kind of, you know, about other things. So that was really nice to kind of have almost feel like a little profile. I like that. So let's start with Lindsay Lohan, someone I talked about a ton on this show. I got a text from my friend Jay this week, and we all want the best for Lindsay, but he says, you know, my, how the mighty have fallen. Lindsay Lohan, over on Daily Mail, there's an article that says, excess baggage. Makeup-free Lindsay Lohan jets into Sydney Airport with 10 suitcases as she prepares to film The Masked Singer. So she's going to be a judge, not on Masked Singer US, UK, Korea, but Australia. You know, I love Lindsay, but, you know, reality TV, many view it kind of as like the basement of TV. And not only that, but it's not really even airing in the United States. What do we think of this?
Well, she says in that article that she's thrilled to be in Australia, so she doesn't have to deal with the traffic of LA. And I'm thinking, well, that's a reach. And I think the point of The Masked Singer, I didn't watch it here, but I know a lot of people did and really loved it. And I think the point of it is that the person behind the mask eventually is going to be someone famous you would recognize. But is Lindsay going to be recognizing Australian pop stars or television stars? Is she familiar with their entertainment industry over there in Australia?
I was wondering the same thing. Like, she's going to have to be coached, or, you know, someone's going to have it. So it'd be like an earpiece in her ear. I don't see how she would know any of these people. The names they referenced just on the panel alone, I didn't recognize, of the judges. Then an article by the Sydney Morning Herald questioned the same thing. They proposed the same question, and they named a bunch of other people that they believe would be the caliber of celebrity that would do this show. And I didn't recognize any of those names. I can't imagine. I don't know. Maybe what do they do? Give Lindsay maybe a stack of like local, like, rags and magazines to like study up? I don't know.
I don't know either. I mean, unless it's like, you know, Russell Crowe or Hugh Jackman or like Margot Robbie. I mean, unless it's like really famous Australians, I don't think that when the mask is revealed, she'll be like, oh my gosh, it's who's another famous Australian? It's Nicole Kidman. I mean, you know, that's not going to happen. So it's a strange pick for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, a ratings grab for the show, but they're putting her at a disadvantage because she's not going to know what's going on. You know, at this point in her career, I was just talking to a friend about this, like, you know, I don't know if she can ever really rebound. And I've said this on the show, like, I was hoping she'd be back in films, maybe in like, you know, later years, like, you know, steps away from the business for a while, gets her life together. Then, you know, she's a little bit more marketable as an older actress. But, you know, if she's going to keep going down this path of reality TV, and now it's not even, you know, in the US market, I don't know. I mean, this kind of puts her in what I call the bargain basement of reality TV stars.
So you're saying there's reality TV stars, and then there's even lower, which is the bargain basement of reality TV stars?
Think like WeTV Family Therapy, you know?
I don't even know what that is, so it must be very, very low on the pole of Of
I mean, her parents were on Family Therapy. I mean, that's like where we're going. You know what I mean? And I'm afraid, and I'm nervous for her. I just don't know who's repping her. What does she have a manager? And if so, like, are they a UTA? Are they a CAA, WME? Like, who's repping her that would get her these gigs? And she shouldn't be accepting them. That's my opinion.
I agree, but I think that there's been so many bridges burned with her and so much bad press for so long.
That's true.
She hasn't proven herself that she could appear on a movie set and be punctual and be professional, you know? So maybe this is just the way her career has gone, and we all have to just accept it and try to find a way to watch The Masked Singer.au.
Yeah. That's the thing. Like, I know in this business, you have to be marketable, and I really don't know if she is, and I don't think that she is, but, you know, it's just a shame that, you know, you can go from being like that child star / like, you know, like young actress in Hollywood, the front row of the VMAs, only like 12 years ago. So, like, you know, taking a gig for a few weeks. And no disrespect to Australia, I'd feel the same way if she was doing the US version, because I'm like, really, a judge? But I guess that's a pitfall that a lot of people get. I mean, from The Voice to The X Factor, my beloved Britney was on that. I mean, you know, I guess it's like a reality of the world that we're in. One last thing that I'll say is, you know, the show, if you're in Australia, will be airing on Channel 10. I need any of my Australian listeners to keep an eye open, make gifts, let me know what's going on, because I will be following from afar. Anyway, let's talk about something different. I really don't talk about this show much on Grants Rants, but the Real Housewives of Potomac is entertaining me this season. And I know that Mary Payne watches, and I wanted to talk about it. So let's get into it.
All right.
You know, like I said, I'm a fan, but, you know, this season was shot like 10 months ago. And, you know, people have had babies and then went through a whole pregnancy cycle. And the show is still like airing. I mean, we're still not caught up. Like, it's a little delayed, to say the least. I mean, 10 months to wait for a show to come out. Is anything even relevant? That's my only complaint. I'm enjoying what's on my TV, but it's just not relevant to time.
I agree. And here's what's interesting. Okay. So people that listen to my podcast or ever hear me on one of Aaron Martin's on Pink Shade or something, I talk about how I work in the same building with Chris, who's Candace's husband. Chris is the manager, not the owner, of a restaurant called Myron Mixon's Pitmaster Barbecue. It's very good. Myron Mixon is a famous barbecuer. It's a great restaurant. He's the manager. I find him to be a total delight. I like him. He lets me have Diet Cokes for free sometimes. I like him a lot. And if I swing by and he's in there, I will usually have a chat. Well, when the news came out last year about this Michael grabbing the cameraman's butt, I approached him and said, "Oh my gosh, did you see the news?" And so, of course, now as I'm watching it, I'm thinking they were probably filming as I was around the same day or two as I went in, because it all was in real time. And so I spoke to him about it, and he said, "I was at that party." And he said, "Look, I don't doubt that it happened." He goes, "I didn't see it. I was drunk at that party." He said, "But I didn't see it." He said, "All I know is we were going on a cast trip right after that. And I won't say where, but I had to make sure my passport was in order. And then we got told none of the men could go. And I'm mad about that because I was looking forward to a vacation." So he told me that at the time. Now, since then, I see him all the time, and sometimes we talk about the show and sometimes we don't. Well, this past month, I was in New York for a few days doing some podcast work and have a little vacation. And we were in the Amtrak station coming back to D.C. And I look over and I see Karen Huger in the Amtrak station. She was in the Red Cap area where we were. And I looked at my friend and I said, "That's Karen Huger." And she said, "How can you tell?" I was like, take a look. I mean, she had these giant sunglasses on, indoors in a kind of a tracksuit with her short blonde wig on that looked really cute. So she sat there for a while, and I debated, and I don't mind if I see a celebrity going up to them, as long as they're not in the middle of a meal or something. I won't do that. So I debated. And finally, I just went over there and I crouched down in front of her. No one was talking to her, and said, Karen, I just wanted to let you know that I recognized you and I love the show and I'm from DC and I do know Chris, Candace's husband. So once I said that, she sort of realized I wasn't like a lunatic.
Yeah.
And we chatted, and she had just been on Watch What Happens Live, which aired last week. And I said, oh, it's kind of bad timing with this Ashley thing. Having the baby. She just had a baby. And, now it's coming out on the show about her husband. It's bad timing.
Yeah.
She said, well, absolutely it is. And that's too bad, because she should be, willing to just, not pay attention to it because she's, in love with her new baby and all this. And I did reach out to her. She said, but here's the thing. If Ashley and her husband have some sort of arrangement, that's fine. Who cares? No one's business. They can do what they want. But what she needs to do is let her cast members know so that we don't constantly bring it up. She said, we have told her this, like, you just need to let us know this is something private between me and my husband. We have an arrangement. Quit bringing it up. And we would quit bringing it up. She said, but because she stirs it up so much and won't let us know anything about her life, and clearly this is he's a repeat offender on these type of things, and we've all seen the pictures and heard the story. She said, it just makes us mad, especially because she's the first one to talk about me or whatever.
Well, that's true. So, she is in everyone's business. I mean, she's not on the sidelines. She is probably one of the most aggressive cast members on that show. So yeah, I get it.
Yeah. And Karen, I have to tell you, in person, she looks much younger than she appears on TV. Her skin is flawless. So, yeah, I had a nice chat with her. We took a picture. She got on the train. I got on the train. I didn't bother her again. And so then a few days later, you're here recently, I saw Chris over at the restaurant, and I told him about my encounter with her. And I said, oh, in person, and they are very friendly. They are very close with Karen and Ray, Candace and Chris. And he said, oh, yeah, they are real nice. And I said, her skin is so pretty. He said, she's had a lot of work done. And I just looked at him, and he said, maybe she should have done a skincare line instead of a, perfume. And I said, well, look, I just appreciated her being nice and being friendly, because you don't always get that. I saw Giselle one time. She was on Watch What Happens Live, and I was in the audience, and she was sort of rude. And he said, oh, yeah. And then, of course, he just went off on Giselle about how she's rude to everybody. And he has asked her before, like, hey, take a picture with my friend, and she won't do it. And he said, if you see Candace somewhere and she's in public at an event, of course she's going to take a picture with you. He said, that's what they signed up for. And he goes, people come in here every day and ask to take a picture with me, and I'm at work. And he goes, but we all signed our contract, and that's what you do. Right. He's just and I told him, I said, Karen and I agree that you're too aggressive on Twitter, because he goes after people on Twitter. And he said, oh, sometimes people just need to be put in their place. I said, who cares? Yeah. Don't let it get, don't let it get to you.
I get it. Like, I can see both sides, but eventually you can't fight the world. I mean,
you're going to become
let
jacked.
People talk. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's too much. And all that constant literal flow of the feed of negativity. I mean, that will kill your soul. I mean, it's just too much. You mentioned Giselle, though. I never cared for her. She, to me, was like a Nene. I can see right through her. I know it makes her tick. I never had really much interest in Giselle. I think that she is lousy, and I'm not surprised at what I'm hearing. I'm trying to be nice about it, but I don't care for her, and I don't care for how she contributes to the show either. But, there's always one, and I've come to accept that I'm not going to love every cast. And after the current season of Beverly Hills, I'm lucky to even like one of them. So, it is what it is. But I will say, my favorite on Potomac is Monique, because I think she's the most relatable to me. And I like watching her. I think that, she has a good attitude. I like how she laughs about everything. It's not that serious to her, which I can appreciate, because I don't feel like she's putting anything up for the cameras. And I think that she legitimately has real money, which is nice to see in some of these places. And it's too bad, though, because there really does seem that there's a lot of bad blood between her and Candace in real life. And there were a bunch of tweets that went back and forth recently. To me, Candace is too angry. She's too angry of a person. I mean, constantly upset and yelling and screaming and fighting. I mean, it's almost like embarrassing. And every scene that she's in, she's yelling at someone, or she's dabbing her eyes because she's crying. I mean, it's just there's two speeds with her,
Yes, yes. I've heard other podcasters talk about how she, constantly has a square of some sort of tissue, to dab her eyes. And, she walks out of a restaurant, grabs the tablecloth so she can dab her eyes. She's always dabbing her eyes. Yeah, I think that she's sort of learning her way in this group of women because she is so young. And I think she's, if she's around for another season, maybe she'll sort of ease into it a little more. I agree, she's a little spun up this season.
On a more general note, like, I love the drama of watching Housewives and reality TV, but I've seen these shows and the franchise change over to this fight of the week situation. And, when every event that they have, in this case, it was a hoedown event, then it's dinner, then it's a trip, there's always a fight that occurs. And to me, it's a little tiring when people are always threatening each other and swearing on their children's lives and all this. Like, it gets a little contrived to me after a while. I'm a little tired of it. I love the drama, but I don't know. It's like there's so much, especially on this show. Every other scene, there's someone seems to be fighting with someone or making a real personal insult at someone's lifestyle. I mean, I don't mind some shade, but sometimes I think they cross the line.
Yeah, I do like to see people getting along. And, I know not your favorite topic, but Beverly Hills, they had that scene when they were at the winery in France and they were all joking and doing the imitations. And even though Erica Jane wasn't having it, that was like a nice moment because, I'm just thinking of a recent nice moment that They were all sort of sitting around and laughing and having a good time. And so I'd like to see that just as much as I like to see, whatever the drama is going to be.
Yeah, I think what I'm saying is there needs to be a balance because I agree with what you're saying in that sense. Like, it is kind of nice to see people like not be so on for the cameras and so fired up and produced, whether they're self-produced or produced through the production company or, fired up in a van before entering a party. Like, we all know that stuff happens. So, like, it is nice to see people act like human beings on a vacation, but you got to balance it out. They have the opposite problem, Beverly Hills, in my opinion. There's nothing going on and there's no fights, but like, it's just like they've got to find a balance there too. So, I'm a particular person, even in my reality TV. So, but for me, we're going to get to it, but New York is a perfect balance. We'll hold that thought because before I get there, I want to talk about 90 Day Fiancé. Now, a lot of people enjoyed this show. I talked about it last week. And like I said, I've been trying to find the right group of people to talk about the show with because people are still discovering it or they've only heard about it. But I really love talking about it because this show really makes me happy. It really does. This show is delivering for me. And Mary Payne, I know you watch too. So let's get into it really briefly because there's so much to discuss. But let's talk about this Ashley and Jay situation.
Okay. I was wondering because there's two iterations on right now. We've got Happily Ever After and The Other Way.
Yeah. The Other Way, how do you feel about The Other Way? Because The Other Way, for those not listening, are the people in the United States that are going to other countries. They're moving there to be with their loves. Now, the real 90 Day, the original, is that the foreigners move to the U.S. So how do you feel about The Other Way?
I think it's a great concept. They have it. They have so many iterations of it. Happily Ever After, What Now? Before the 90 days. And I talk every week with Aaron Martin on Pink Shade about this, and then we talk about it on our Patreon, Hey Bunky. So I'm well versed in all the 90 Day. I like The Other Way because it's interesting in that specifically the couple that's gone over to India, and she's a much older woman, and you have 6 months to get married, and they have to send the paperwork to your original address, which could be your parents' home, or maybe you're married to somebody else. And it's very interesting to see the process in another country.
Yeah.
I really found it to be very refreshing because these people aren't so camera savvy quite yet, like Ashley and Jay, where they're manipulating the system, which Ashley and Jay have completely done the whole time.
Well, yeah, there's a lot, and I'm wondering if you could shine a light on it because there's a lot of talk about Ashley and Jay, and I want to really just kind of give a brief recap for the listener, but this guy Jay from Jamaica, he cheated on his wife, Ashley. They filed for divorce. Then less than 2 weeks later, she withdrew and then refiled again. He's currently in ICE custody at the time of recording this podcast. So we mentioned this briefly last week, so we're going to talk a little bit more about them. there's a lot of talk like that she is getting a certain edit and that she's not as innocent as she looks, and she was in the hospital, but was it for a tummy tuck or was she really sick? You know, is there any, what do you think? How do you perceive her? Is this legit or what?
Yes, I think that since all this stuff went down with Jay and she said he violated a restraining order by posting about her on social media. So then she said he violated the restraining order, and that's what got him put in ICE custody. And then his sister comes out of the woodwork, and then her mother comes out of the woodwork. And then the other, I mean, it's a mess. It's always been a mess with them. And yes, I do think she suffers from lupus, and I think she was in the hospital for that. But I think probably also she got that 90-day fiancé money in addition to her regular job and did get a tummy tuck. I mean, she's had 2 kids. I mean, God bless. But I think that the two of them have really, really been playing this game with the fans of the show where they, filed for divorce, withdrew the divorce just a couple of months ago. And they said they were fully separated, posted this picture of them doing this wedding photo shoot for some, off-brand wedding magazine. And like, haters don't come at us. We had already contracted with this, so we had to do it even though we're separated.
Oh, come on.
And there's pictures of them pretending to be married. And it's like, we had to do this because we had a contract, even though we're separated. I was like, that is some BS.
How are you going to do that and then have a restraining order against the person?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's
exactly.
ridiculous.
So it's very convoluted. And we've got Poochie, Jay's sister, coming in that we find out she had a 95-year-old husband and she's in her 20s. And then it's so many different. Oh, I'm telling you, Grant, there are so many avenues you can go down with this couple. And I'm sick of them because I really love the show and it's made me angry at, the manipulation that the two of them have done. And no, I don't think she's innocent at all. I think she's, one brick shy of a load. I think she's not innocent at all in the whole situation. And she wanted to be on TV and wanted to make money. And right after he got put in ICE custody, the same weekend, she was in Vegas partying up at some pool party with Pauly D or whichever one of those
so she had
Jersey Shore guys.
So she had a paid appearance.
Like right after. And then she's tweeting about how sorry she is about Jay. And and then she withdrew something. I don't know.
She's now said that she's done with the show completely. I don't believe
if she's done with the show, it wasn't her own choice for sure.
Well, that's a good point. And now this weekend, she said in a Q&A that Jay is refusing to sign divorce papers and that they are still married. And they said that, he's still facing deportation and that he's requesting half of everything I own. That's why he won't sign. I don't understand the whole process, especially when ICE is involved. I mean, I don't know if he would even be entitled to anything. If he's up for deportation, how would he even be entitled to anything in the relationship if it wasn't legit?
It's probably half of the earnings while they were married, because a lot of times on these shows, the foreigner does not get paid until they get their change of status, which she never filed for with him. So because he didn't have change of status, the foreigners never get paid, only the Americans. So you have to trust that the American's going to give you half the money. And he is saying he never got his half of the money, from Sharp Entertainment.
So see, if you didn't do the reality show, you could have had a clean break. Interesting. Yeah. Because, a lot of them, for those who don't know, are really just like people, like regular people. But there's always someone that figures out the game, and that's them, it seems. So is that fair to say?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely. There's always one couple that it's like some older woman got catfished, and there's always this one couple where you're like, oh, bless your heart, you are being played by this foreigner. There's always one couple like that, and then there's always one couple you can tell right away really is enjoying the screen time, and then the rest of the people are just normal people who actually fell in love with somebody from another country on a vacation, or they met them on an app, or whatever the situation, but they are actually in love and trying to find a way to be together.
Well, when we come back, we're going to take a brief break, and then we're going to be taking a look at the Real Housewives of New York, which includes a rant of the day that I have to deliver. So let's take a brief break. That and more in a moment with Mary Payne. Now this.
You're listening to Grants Rants. Subscribe and spread the word. There are a lot more rants to come. Listen anytime on all major podcasting platforms. And now, back to the show.
And we're back on the rants with Mary Payne Gilbert calling in over Skype. Thanks again for doing the show.
Oh, it's so fun, Grant. I love talking to you.
Thanks. And I'm so glad that we're doing this. Last summer, I kind of took a little bit of a break after a live show, and I didn't really have programming. But like I said, this summer, it's going to be all rants. So, the news is kind of slow, but, we're finding things to discuss. And, Real Housewives of New York, God bless it. It's still on. I'm savoring it. We have at this point, one more week?
Yes.
So
it's usually the best one. Part 3 of the reunion usually gives you the most.
Yeah. Well, I'll be sad to see it go because it really entertains me and it delivers. I mean, even Tinsley, this last episode at the reunion, really showing her teeth.
Yeah. Good for her because give Tinsley a break. It is none of their business. I mean, she says flat out, I have family money, okay, Scott is not paying for anything. The way she lived before she met Scott is the same way she'll live after,
Yeah. I agree with her, though, where she says, we don't talk about money. That's not something that I was raised to do. I don't even know how to do that. And I totally get that. I don't see the need to have to talk about money.
I agree.
It's crazy that Dorinda, for whatever reason, has to feel as though she has to know Tinsley so well. I don't know why. I don't know why she feels as though she's that involved in her life. I don't believe that Tinsley is really friendly with any of them off camera. So to me, it's such a story.
Yeah. And I think that, the whole, you don't even live here. I think she's like, okay, well, so sorry that I'm rich enough that I can live in Palm Beach when it's winter in New York City and I can live in New York in the summer. I mean, and she lives in the Hamptons. So what? I mean, she's got a lot of money. She's got a lot of houses. I mean, God bless. Godspeed, Tinsley. Yeah, I like Tinsley. I don't want to get the feeling that I think they're trying to push her out,
Well, I was just going to say, I wonder if they were trying to push her out with that comment, you don't even live here, because that could really be damaging if they don't, if they should convince the powers that be that she's just flying in to shoot the show for a few months and going somewhere else. But also, that's a lifestyle that people have. They live all over. Some people do that with other countries. So, I don't know. I think I agree. I think you have to give Tinsley a little bit of a break.
I like Tinsley, and I think that unaired footage that, was going around and then they showed it on the reunion of Ramona making fun of her and telling her just, first of all, I think Ramona has got some sort of major problem. She just does a zero filter, and I don't know what it is, but it's some sort of mental situation she has going on where she just she can't hold it in. And for her to go and just all of a sudden be like, you wear too much makeup. Your eyelashes are too heavy. I look young. You look old. I'm like, good grief. If somebody said that to me, I would crawl in a hole and die. I mean, that's so mean.
There's no remorse later. Like, oh, I think I took it too far. Or I, blame it on the alcohol. No, I don't even think Ramona even realizes that she does. But, she is great for that show. I would never want her to leave.
Same. And I loved how this year, the whole thing with her saying, well, I'm a work in progress. I'm trying to change. And then they just roll all that footage of all the years of her saying, well, I'm trying to change. I'm trying to change. I'm a work in progress. I'm trying to change. He's like, what exactly are you trying to change?
Ain't never going to happen, as they say. I would not bank on that. So now let's take a turn and get into my rant of the day.
Grant Rant of the Day.
Okay, I'm ready for it.
This rant of the day is going to Lou. I've just about had enough with the cabaret and everything. And now we find out that she's partnered with IVDrips.com to create her own custom intravenous therapy formula. In a Page 6 exclusive, she talks about how it's supposed to promote health and hydration. And what is it called? Feelin' Giovanni drip. I mean, you've got to be kidding me at this point. This is too much, even for me. What do you make of this?
You sent me that article and I had not seen it. And I tell you what, I thought it was a spoof. I thought it was like an Onion article. I did not think it was real. And first of all, the picture, it's so fake. It's like they put a Band-Aid on her arm to pretend like she had a drip in. That's not what your arm looks like when you have a drip in. So to me, and I live in an area where you could get these people to come to your house with drips. I've never done it.
Right.
But to me, it's always like, it's supposed to be like a hangover cure, right? I mean, that's what drips usually are for.
Yeah. I thought it was like a banana bag, like when you do drugs or you get so intoxicated, like you have to clean out your system.
It's like when you go to the hospital and they give you all that, hydration saline or whatever, they're just like trying to rehydrate you because you're so sick. So I think it's a little off brand if she's trying to be a sober person, but have an IV drip for, let's put it in air quotes, hydration and health. What Giovanni let their name.
I know.
There are respected, clothier to put their name with this.
Right.
The whole thing is bananas.
Well, she's spinning it. She's saying it's the perfect recharge and reset button after a workout, especially in this record-setting heat wave. Trying to be timely, Lou. I see that. The formula channels everything. Oh, this is another thing. The quote continues. The formula channels everything the song is about: youth, energy, and just an overall sense of positivity. Give me a break. I am calling BS on this. This is so ridiculous and unnecessary. And because of that Bethany clause in all of their contracts, this means because it's promoted and it's a housewives business, Bravo must be making some money off of this too, which is even more absurd.
Oh my gosh. I just think that the whole it's for after workouts. Okay, so you're going to go to yoga or you're going to go do a 10-mile run. And instead of chugging down a Powerade or some water like a normal person, you're going to then call an IV doctor to give you an IV because you had a hard soul cycle experience. This is the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
I know. I mean, I feel guilty. I threw up my back and had to get a massage and felt guilty for that. Never mind having to go, you do 30 on the treadmill and you have to have an IV in your arm for an hour, longer than you worked out. I mean, it's ridiculous. This ivdrips.com, they say that, again, the branding here, it's the perfect Hampton staple. I mean, this is how I feel when I go through that Gwyneth Paltrow's list of the gift guide. I mean, I live for that list, but I mean, it's an eye roll the entire time. This is too much. It's $380. You can go to a drip. There's one random drip lounge somewhere in Brooklyn. You can do this at, or you can place orders soon. And I mean, what do? Administer it yourself? You just
I saw that place orders. I was like, and then what? A doctor comes to your house? It's so stupid. It's so stupid. It makes no sense to me.
I can't believe that people would do this. I would love to see the sales because I can't imagine that anyone would go out of their way to just, what right-minded person? I mean, maybe for as a joke, I would only hope that people would do this because this isn't real. I mean, I can't get over this. This has been my rant of the day. I'm all flummoxed.
That's my opinion!
Also, we should mention that portions of the proceeds from this IV drip benefit the Women's Prison Association. I mean, this story is too much even for me.
It's not like she was in prison for a month. I mean, she wasn't like Teresa Giudice, actually in prison. She was in a jail cell overnight. Now, come on.
Come on. I can't. I just want to talk briefly about Carol, ex-Real Housewife of New York, on Jenny McCarthy, basically saying that her friendship with Tinsley was for cameras. I mean, no. Are you saying these shows are fake in certain ways? I mean, I think we all kind of knew that there was something up with them, but she said producers paired them up together on trips, things like that, and they currently have no relationship or have seen each other since. I mean, how did you react to this?
Well, once again, poor Tinsley just gets slammed to the ground.
True.
I mean, it was so awful last year at that reunion when Carol's like, I'm not even friends with her. And Tinsley's like, we went to Abu Dhabi together and, we've been on 10 trips together. She's like, yeah, but we're not really friends. I mean, that was so hurtful and horrible. And for her then to go on Jenny McCarthy and say the same thing. And while I think she was trying to say, I know that it looked bad that I said that on the reunion, but here's the truth of it. But it didn't make her sound any better. It made her sound equally as bad. Let's just say you are forced to film with someone and have lunch with them once a week for 4 months. Well, I mean, then you're friends. I mean, you are.
Yeah, I mean, they're bonded. They're cast and bonded by the show. I mean, at the very least, it's hard to kind of write someone off completely. No, I don't even know her. It's
like Mariah Carey. I don't know her.
Yeah, it's a little odd. Yeah, I don't know what to do with Carol. I don't mind her, but she said that the show was getting darker and darker. I mean, and she referenced Lou's, recent legal things. I mean, I don't know how dark the show's getting. I mean, I think that the shows, are getting higher and higher produced as far as like what we're led to believe. We're not exactly watching people in their everyday lives anymore. I feel like it's a little bit more put together for us, but I don't know about darker.
All of these shows have a little bit of darkness running through. There's always something just a little tragic. And I don't think New York is getting darker. I think it's always been a little on the dark side.
I think it's a great balance. I think they have the ridiculous and then the serious. I mean, we've heard a lot about, Dorinda's late husband's passing, and then we see Dorinda decorating for Halloween, and we laugh at that. I mean, it's just like there's all over the place like things. You can kind of like choose your own adventure a little bit with New York. And that's what makes it such a good television show. And I keep telling people there are people who, especially even in my family, who watch Housewives, they don't watch New York. And I'm like, you can be entertained.
I think it's the gold standard. I think that all housewife shows could aspire to be as good as New York. I mean, like everyone says, like more happens in one episode in New York that would happen in 3 episodes of Beverly Hills, you know?
Yeah. Well, like, no arguments here.
I know how you feel about Beverly Hills. I know.
Yeah. I talked a little bit about it on your show, and let's use that as a transition. Again, the name of Mary Payne's show is Payne in the Pod, Payne. And again, I had the pleasure of being on. And, I feel like with podcasters, and maybe it's just me, but I've heard a few others, if you're podcasting, we're not really listening to a lot of other shows. At least I'm not, but that doesn't seem to be the case for you. It seems like you're always listening.
Well, my whole podcast is about podcast, right? So I listen to podcasts all day, every day. I listen to them in the shower. I listen to them in the car. I listen to them while making dinner. I just all day. And I do that because I love them, and also because I like to get sort of the behind the scenes story of, like, for example, I'm going to be interviewing soon the creators of this podcast called 22 Hours, which is about the DC mansion murders. And it's a local podcast, but it's been in the top of the iTunes charts because it's true crime. But for me, I can remember when it was happening in real time. And so I just love to get the behind the stories of so for example, of these 2 podcasters, like they were just covering it for the local news station, but what made you decide to spin it into a podcast, and how did you go deeper, and how did you get these interviews? And, for a 1-hour show, how long is it taking you? 10 hours,
Right.
I just, and I've interviewed some really amazing podcasters like Dave Cawley of the Cold podcast, and some ones that have just been, top of the charts, the NXIVM one, the Broken Hearts one, like just so many. And then I do a lot of talking to people that do reality show podcasts, because that's sort of the flip side, right? It's the balance. It's like kind of the true crime darkness and the reality show lightness. That's all in my wheelhouse, and I love it.
Yeah, you definitely have a good balance of what you cover on your show. There's really, like, again, I want to promote it because I think people will be able to not only discover your show, but discover other shows that they'd be interested in through listening. Because there's a lot to cover, and I don't know how you listen to all the shows. God bless you.
Sometimes I see one and I go, like just now, I'd gone to Whole Foods to grab some stuff, and one popped up, and it's called The Clearing. And I'd heard about it, and I've heard about it, and I thought, well, I'm just going to go ahead, because once I start, I will listen to it all the way through in a couple of days. And then I, start my lobbying process of trying to get the person on my show to discuss it,
That's great. And what's that process like? How do you reach out to folks?
Well, initially we had, through the production group that I'm with, the scheduler would reach out, but we just found out that it was just way more effective if I reached out personally. So I will go to their website, see if I can find a direct email, and I'll reach out that way. And if I can't find it because they're all locked down, I will try to go through the PR, or I'll try to go through. Sometimes I just shout them out on Twitter and say, would love to have you on my podcast. And for example, Joe from The Shrink Next Door, which was a huge podcast, he wrote back to me right away, would love to do it. Let's set it up. We're still in the process of trying to set that up. But, sometimes they'll just like somebody you think would never, ever write back to you will write back and say, let's do it. And, that's sort of the magic and the power of social media.
Yeah, really. Yeah. And that's kind of what's happened with me too. You know, when I left AfterBuzz, I was a little concerned on how I would be able to continue to find guests that, you know, could speak to topics and understand what the medium of being on a podcast and things like that. But hey, you know, the power of social media, and I've even had folks on who are listeners of this show recently, and, you know, they know what it is to talk about these things because they're listening and they're just as engaged, and now they have a new platform themselves. So yeah, it's all great. And thank God for social media, because I would have ran out of guests and that was a concern, but it's no longer a concern. So I'm very appreciative of that. But these podcasts, they're all kind of done differently. Some of them are done like mine is, I produce on my own. Others will do it under a network umbrella. But you know, you kind of have a setup where you work with a team, right? So talk a little bit about that.
Well, I have a producer, Richard, and then there's a girl that does the social media for me. And then, you know, and I do my own shots, you know, obviously like, hey, don't forget to listen to, but she does a lot of like the audiograms and things like that are very professionally done that I don't have any expertise. So she does that. And then there's another girl that does just scheduling. And then there's another person that does a lot of the editing. And all these people fall under the umbrella of Richard's company, which is called Junto Media, and he does a lot of podcasts. And you know, when we first started, he was sort of like, no podcasts about podcasts generally are successful. They're generally not successful. I was like, well, let's give it a try, because here's my idea. So he agreed to kind of go on this ride with me, and it's turned out it has been successful, and sort of my idea, the way I wanted to, as my husband describes it, VH1 behind the music, like that, behind the scenes of podcasts. And I tell my husband, you know, nobody knows what that means anymore. We're old, but it's sort of like that. I just want to like go behind and find out. For example, when I talked to Dave Cawley, who did the podcast Cold, it was top 10 in the charts for months, and even top 2. And I couldn't believe he wanted to talk to me, number one. And he said, you know, you were one of the first people that reached out and really wanted to talk. I was like, you've got to be kidding. He said, when he was describing that there are what amounts to 11 floors of documents about the case that he worked on, Josh's Susan Powell, 11 floors of rooms of documents. Oh my God. And that was his baseline of starting to do the research. When you think about like that, and somebody puts 20 hours in to produce one highly, you know, produced and gorgeous episode, yeah, I want to talk to that person. Like, how did you do it? Yeah. You know, what's your passion behind it? When did you have time? You know, that's what I want to know. And so I just find some of these podcasters to be such driven people. And then like I've met people like you that now we're friends, and the podcasting community I have found 99% of the time is super supportive of their own, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we should be. It's a new medium. So, yeah, I say the same thing all the time. Yeah, we all should be lifting each other up here, because, like I said, we're all kind of talking about a lot of the same things to a degree, at least in the reality world. So, yeah, I believe it. So I would be remiss if I didn't mention, because I love Erin Martin, but your joint Patreon venture over there, Hey Bunky. Tell me a little bit about what people can expect on that.
Well, while my regular podcast can be pretty serious, Hey Bunky is nothing but fun, because it started out that I go on Erin Martin's podcast, Pink Shade, once a week, and we talk about 90 Day Fiancé or Love After Lockup, or, you know, whatever was the kind of the garbage TV of the week. And we started doing that, and we said, you know, people really like us together. Maybe what if we just did a Patreon only? And I tell you what, Grant, we have been stunned, because it is just like shot through the roof with subscribers, and you know, we have it's so fun. We have Hey Bunky swag, and we send it out, and we literally got the name Hey Bunky from Sasha from Love After Lockup, because Brittany is the girl on the show, and her bunkie in prison was named Sasha. Sasha recently, in a recent episode, went back to prison. Terrible. So we're like, R.I.P. Sasha. But Hey Bunky, we just thought it was hilarious, because when they see each other, they go, Hey Bunky. So that's where it came from. And currently we're talking about 90 Day Fiancé the other way. And we're talking about Life After Lockup. And we're also talking about a little gem called Smothered, which is about that show has given me so much joy, and also terrified me that one of the daughters is going to kill the mother. We're soon going to be covering Marrying Millions. and we have a high level on our Patreon where the patrons can tell us what they want us to watch. So they have had a good time thinking of really gross things like Dr. Pimple Popper that they want us to watch.
Yeah.
Review, and I'm just in a constant on my knees begging, like, please don't make me watch that.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what makes your podcast great, both of them, because you're a naturally curious person. And I feel like a lot of those types fall right into these reality shows because we're flies on the wall. So, you know what I mean? Like, it all kind of makes sense. So, I am. I think people listening will really be able to relate to you. So if you want to check out Mary Payne's show, Payne in the Pod, give it a shot. My episode, if you want to start with that one, is titled Ranting Through Hollywood Gossip. And there are plenty of others. I mean, if you're a real podcast listener, I mean, you'll match up with one of them or you'll find a new show for yourself. So I encourage you to check it out.
Yeah, absolutely. And at the end of my podcast, I always say, now, what podcast do you listen to? And like you said, some podcasters will say, I don't listen to many, but here are some friends that I support. And then some will come at me with a list like TED Talks and, all these like super brainy things. And it's always surprising, depending on their genre, it's always surprising to me what other people listen to, things I've never heard of or things that I think, really? You listen to that? It's kind of lowbrow. I mean, it always entertains me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my tastes are all over the place, so I get it. Well, thank you very much, Mary Payne. I'm so glad that we finally got you on the rants and we covered a lot of information. I appreciate it.
Listen, I'm thrilled anytime I can listen to you rant.
Oh, thank you. Well, I went off with that Lou. I don't even get me started with that IV drip.
I would like for you to go and get one and report back.
Oh, anyway, my thanks to you, Mary Payne, for coming on the podcast. And I love you as always for listening. And keep it here because there'll be more rants to come. My thanks to Mary Payne.
Thank you.
This has been Grants Rants. Support the rants on Patreon at patreon.com/Grants Rants. Follow Grant on Twitter and Instagram at It's Grants Rants. Cover art created by RHONY. Voiceover by Aw Yeah! Original theme music by Alexander Arntzen. The Grant Michael Collection.